Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on Channel 1 television. My name is Adjei, and this show gets the right topics, we get the right guests, and ask them all the relevant questions on issues that matter to you. We have a big show tonight with just one question. Does Ghana have a founder, or does Ghana have founders? And therefore, is it Founders Day with the apostrophe after the S or before the S? I have a man who's been studying Ghana's history for many years to try and work our way through this simple but complicated question. Stay with us. Welcome back. So tonight we're talking about Founders Day. So the President of the Republic on Founders Day, or the Sunday before August the 4th, gave an address where he says Ghana was not founded by one man. In fact, he says those who say Ghana was founded by Kwame Nkrumah, did they think Ghana was asleep before he turned up? It set the cat among the pigeons. Lots of debate. Is Nkrumah the founder of Ghana? Is it the Big Six? Or are there multiple people who should all be accorded the accolade of founders of Ghana? Background. As a holiday in September 2012, the NDC government set out to honor Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. His birthday, 21st September, was declared Founders Day, F-O-U-N-D-E-R apostrophe S. It's the Founders Day. It's Nkrumah's birthday. That has been so until 2019, when the MPP and Akufo-Addo said, that's a misnomer. We'll still celebrate 21st September as Kwame Nkrumah's Memorial Day. But Ghana was founded, according to him, by the Big Six. And therefore, August 4, the day the UGCC, the party that they all used to belong to before Nkrumah broke away to form the CPP, the day that party was birthed should be Founders Day. The minority in parliament in 2019, the NDC walked out. They didn't have anything to do with that. But the Public Holidays Act 2001, Act 601, was amended to reflect same. So since 2019, every August the 4th has been celebrated as Founders Day. Tonight, I have Kweku Danquah, a historian. We interview him a lot on our programs to work through all of this. Kweku, thanks for coming on the show. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure this is not the first time this debate has happened.
Yep.
And so you're not surprised that it's come up again. But were you surprised when the president chose his last Founders Day to go to the matter again? Because he actually generated a controversy with his speech. It wasn't as if the day came and people started talking, right? Did it surprise you the way he went about this?
Yeah, because probably he's leaving and he wants to re-echo the desire, probably if his party gets to win, then there will be legitimate ground for continuation of the celebration, despite the criticism from other quarters. So that is probably one of the things he was trying, because he had opportunity since 2019 to have forcefully really pushed this kind of thing that he said in his last address to the nation with regards to the celebration of the Founders Day. So what I see is that for him, and the time he was, born, he got to know a lot of things. He know for him, unlike many other Ghanaians or people in the MPP, he had a lot if the Founders Day stays, not because of anything. One, he had kinship ties to at least 3 of the Big Six, and it will be misnomer on his side not to re-echo or have a desire to have their names properly etched in the historical making of the country called Ghana. So for him, if you or some kind of push Nkrumah agenda as a founder, it means it's going to go against his father, one who is a Akufo-Addo in the Big Six. It's going to go against his 2 uncles, William Ofori Atta, who is the Pauli we know, as well as Dr. Adjei Danquah, the doyen of Gold Coast politics. So you can see where he, as a person, has most or huge interest in the celebration.
So let's take it one by one. Who were the Big Six?
So the Big Six itself, many people have made it look like some historical epoch thing. The Big Six could have been more than Big Six. This is what happened after the declaration of the riot, the disturbances.
1948.
1948. The disturbances itself was not as a result of the UGCC planning. What happened was, one, things that were happening around that time. One, the veterans who have been organized by Bansby Ahmad Temaklo have successfully moved on to send their grievances to the Christabon Castle, Osu, of which they made Major Emre, and they were fired upon. We all know what happened to the three people, Adjei, Kwame, and Obetsebi-Lamptey, dying as a result. This fueled a lot of agitation around that time. It was within that time that Nkrumah had also declared his boycott on importation of European goods against the Association of West African Merchants, the AWAM. So these were the issues that was going on. So Nkrumah around that time, as the General Secretary, instigated the Committee of Youth Organization, the CYO Young Men, who also participated. So the UGC young men entered into the thing, and the disturbances moved across the country. So that was what happened. In this regard, the CPP Central Committee, they call them the Working Committee, were calling members to come and meet. So the 6 members or leaders of the group that were first to go to the headquarters there, where the people, when the police were coming to arrest, they had them.
So this is the UGCC.
UGCC. That is
so the Central Committee.
The Central Committee members, the 6 of them who were early in the headquarters. So example is, let's say NPP have sent their youth to go on demonstration, and the president empowered this NDC. Now NPP is in power, so NDC has sent the people into demonstration. They are blaming the leadership of the NDC. They send the police to the headquarters. The few people, all the members, come and let's discuss what has happened.
So the 6 that they found there.
The 6 that they found there and they arrested, transmogrified to the so-called Big Six.
So at the time they were members.
They were members. For instance, R.S. Bray was then at Second D, and the Second D workers and the people from the railway has cordoned his house that they will not allow the colonial people to go there. And the most dangerous place to go and make arrests in the colonial days was the western region, Second D, where the railway workers had the massive political clout. So for him, his place was called. Other than that, we'd have Big 7.
So R.S. Blay would have been in that meeting.
He would have been in that meeting if they have grabbed him. He would have also been part of the prisoners. James Christensen, who was also very central to so many things. Pa Grant, who should have been there. Joseph William de Graaf Johnson, who was then former General Secretary before Nkrumah came in. All these people could have been there, and several others.
So
but they had not come.
So the 6 who went for that meeting,
yes,
including Dr. J.B. Danquah, William Ofori Atta, Emmanuel Obetsebi-Lamptey, Edward Akufo-Addo, Ebenezer Akwaje, Edward Akufo-Addo, Obetsebi-Lamptey,
yes,
and then Kwame Nkrumah. They happened to be the 6 who were there.
Very good.
When the authorities got there.
And then make the arrest.
And they were all sent to prison.
Yes. And then when there was a clamor that the people were going to release them, then they dispersed them into the northern territories. Some were sent to Laura, some were going to so they put them in different
So prisons. They separated them because...
They separated them.
So some people say the concept of the Big Six came out of a failure of British intelligence. For example, when Atuba writes about this in 2022, when he spoke to Social Forum and said, the Big Six were never really together as a Big Six and never really agreed.
No,
therefore, it was a failure of British intelligence. I don't know whether that's true.
Yes, it's true, because if you look at the Central Committee meeting or even the Watson Commission report, when they went there, they categorically denied the involvement of the UGCC as being part of what happened. So it was Nkrumah rather who was insisting that if we want to energize the radical aspect of our independence agenda, then we must claim ownership. Then people should know that we are ready to get independence. This was flagged upon, so a committee was set up, headed by Obetsebi-Lamptey and William Ofori Atta. And the committee concluded that, according to Obetsebi-Lamptey, that Nkrumah is a communist and he is bringing confusion into the party. So they will not accept what he is claiming that they should accept, because they are good gentlemen of the colonial empire. So these people, you could see from their thought that though they want independence, but they were still clamoring to the old vestiges of colonialism as being part of the agenda. So Nkrumah had come radical, and it was changing the way they do their things, because that was not the way things were before Nkrumah emerged.
So you've explained to us that these 6 happened to be at that meeting and therefore were arrested, and therefore they were not necessarily like known prior to that as working together. You said there was R.S. Blay, there was James Chris Thurston, there was Park Grant, there was Joseph de Graaf Johnson. Fair enough. But let's talk about each of the big 6 briefly. So let me start with Emmanuel Obetsebi-Lamptey. Who was he?
So Emmanuel, he was born Emmanuel Obetsebi-Lamptey. Later he became Obetsebi-Lamptey. So he was a gentleman. He went to school in Accra, some in Ashanti, returned, and then worked briefly as a stenographer for Adjei Okamsi, the famous billionaire who owned the African Morning Post that was edited by Nnamdi Azikiwe. So he worked for him before he took work in customs in Takoradi, and afterwards he went to Inner Temple to study law by a way through University of London, and then when he finished, he returned to Gold Coast. He couldn't have come to Gold Coast because that was, he completed 45. So that was the period of the war. So he waited, and 46, he returned to the Gold Coast and was called to the Gold Coast Bar.
So was he a founding member of the UGCC?
Yes, so when they were founding the UGCC, he became a member of the UGCC. By 47, Akela Pasoya, who was the Gold Coast Legislative Council member for Accra, died. And as a result, he contested a by-election and won the election from 47 and continued up to 51. In 51, when we had the first election...
Just because of the speed. This Obetsebi-Lamptey Emmanuel is the father of Jake Obetsebi-Lamptey,
yes,
who was former chairman of MPP.
Yes.
And this Akila Pasoya who died, is he related to the current...
That is the son of Professor Akila Pasoya.
So Professor Akila Pasoya, former VC of Legon, his father used to be in the Legislative Council for Accra.
He was in a party called Ratepayers Association.
Ratepayers Association. So Aki died and Jake's took over. Jake's father. Aki's father died and Jake's father took over.
Emmanuel Obetsebi-Lamptey won the by-elections and went. So
for the Legislative Council.
For the Legislative Council. In 1951, we have Legislative Assembly via Kuse Constitutional Reforms of 1948. As a result of the Legislative Assembly, Obetsebi-Lamptey stood at Asiedu-Keteke,
which is now Ododio
constituency around there. And he lost the election massively to Kwame Nkrumah and Thomas Hatton Mills.
Because Nkrumah was in prison.
Yes.
At Jamestown prison.
Yeah.
Or James Fort.
Yes.
And therefore, this is where he stood.
He stood. And if you look at the things that Obetsebi-Lamptey told, that Nkrumah does not belong to Accra, they should not even allow him to come and talk to the people. If you want to do anything, you should go to Nzama land, for he's not even a Ga. If you look at the ethnocentric politics around that time that Obetsebi-Lamptey released in Accra, there is a lot of evidence in the Gold Coast Spectator, Gold Coast Observer about some of the things he said.
Why did Nkrumah stand there? Was it because he was in prison there?
In those days, you could stand anywhere.
And he chose to stand there because
you could stand anywhere. It was later when ethnicity came in.
Yes.
So you see Cape Coast, for example. Later, you see Eni Ayiwebek of Accra standing in Cape Coast. And when he won the seat, Ampersadazi went to court to change about his legitimacy of being in Cape Coast. If you go to Kumasi, Achike Hayford, he was the first member of what is today you will call Mensha seat. Then you have this gentleman, Professor Taylor, who also stood there, Crunchy Taylor, who also stood there and they won. They were all fancies. Wow. In those days, it was beautiful.
Wonderful. So, let's still stay in 40.
Yes. So
Emmanuel Obetsebi-Lamptey was one of the big 6 from Accra Central. He was part of the committee that was set up to look into some matters. Let's deal with the second person,
So it doesn't end there.
Okay.
When he lost the election to Nkrumah, in 52, they founded Ghana Congress Party by Buzia. He joined, and then for him, he had a face off with Buzia that he thought Buzia is a political upstart. So he and Kwame wanted to take over the party from Buzia. So he was expelled from the Gold Coast Ghana Congress Party, and he went and found his own party, Ghana National Party, which he used to run the 1954 elections, and he lost. So if you look after that, Obetsebi-Lamptey was never known in Gold Coast politics again. So you could see that his political crowd is from 47 all the way to 1951. So after 51, he was no longer in the what we call the active political players of the Gold Coast.
So that's Emmanuel Obetsebi-Lamptey.
Yes.
Let's deal with Ebenezer Adjei. Who was he?
So Adjei is from La, and he was born in Adjei in the eastern region. In fact, he couldn't even speak Ga until he grew up. So he came to Accra, schooled in Accra in the Basel Mission and then the Scottish Mission. Later, he moved on to work small with the same African Morning Post where he met Nnamdi Azikiwe. And Nnamdi Azikiwe conscientized him about education in the United States. So he also traveled all the way to Lincoln, later to the University of Columbia, where he had his master's. And he wrote a very famous MPhil thesis called Mortuary Practices. And then from there, he moved to England to go and study. So he studied at England, also in the Middle Temple. Afterwards, then he returned to the Gold Coast to practice law.
So it was then that he was also brought to be part of the UGCC.
Yes.
So also one of the founding members?
Yeah, he's also a founding member.
It is said that he was the one sent to convince Nkrumah to come and join the UGCC.
So he was also at the time of the Manchester Congress of Pan-Africanism, he was the president of West African Student Union.
Okay.
So he was somebody who was well grounded, in fact, from Colombia. This is a guy who has debated Pan-Africanism with Chief Ozomba Mbadiwe, Mboni Ojike, all those Nigerian heavyweights, with Professor K.A.B. Jones-Kote and Kwame Nkrumah around that time. So Adjei is someone who is well grounded in Pan-Africanism as well as a student organization and active student politics in the metropolitan London. So when he returned home, they knew him. Nkrumah knew him. Danquah, for instance, knew Adjei because Danquah himself was also a former president of West African Student Union. So when the gentleman came, all these people, they know themselves in the metropolitan London. So they gathered at that time. And then Adjei became a founding member. So he also founded his newspapers, Gold Coast Star and Times of Africa, and those two newspapers. And he was very active in the colonial struggle. So in 51, he stood the election in the name of UGCC and lost the election to Nkrumah and Thomas Hatton Mills Jr. And in 54, when they founded this Ghana Congress Party, he became a general secretary. But he was always accused because of his relationship between Nkrumah, he being the one who suggested Nkrumah, and Nkrumah had come and broke out. They say, hey, this guy cannot be trusted. In frustration, he resigned.
So you can say that of the six, he was the closest to Nkrumah?
It was the most closest. Because when Nkrumah even moved from United States and came to London, it was Adjei that found him a house in England. So they were very close. They belonged to the same debating club circle in Lincoln. So these are two people who know themselves. Of the big six, no one knows Nkrumah more than Adjei. So because of this, in 51 election, having lost to Nkrumah, and then the GCP, also the Bikren and the suspicion, he resigned and he joined the CPP. As soon as he joined the CPP, he won the seat in 54. Then he was
he's one of the six who left the UGCC and ended up in Nkrumah.
In Nkrumah's party as a CPP member. And he was in the CPP, became a minister, won his seats consistently.
This is La.
Yes, he won the
Beshi.
Yes. Oh. So he won the seat in 54, won it in 56. In the 60s, he won the seat again.
Wow.
Until the issue of the Kulugugu bombing came in 63, and then he was arrested alongside Teria Adamafiu, Holusio H. Kofi Crab, and Robert John Ochre and Yaumenu, and then the 8 others, Mamatula, Joseph Kwemensa, and all those people, about the Kulungu bombing activity. That was how
the falling out between Nkrumah 63.
So you could see that his political career did not end in Gold Coast. He preceded Gold Coast.
It went beyond
Ghana.
Gold Coast. So that's Ebenezer Adjei from La.
Yeah.
So you've dealt with Emmanuel Obetsebi-Lamptey from Accra Central.
Yeah.
I see Keteke. Now let's deal with William Ofori Atta. Who was he?
So William Ofori Atta, the son of Nanase Ofori Atta, and he also schooled a little bit in the Basel Mission, moved from all the way, came to Achimota, had a wonderful education, went to England, studied, had a bit of student politics there. There were some instances where he was heavily against his father. Certain things he wrote about the journey towards it, how there's the need for activizing the nationalism processes in the Gold Coast, and how the chiefs should move away from some of these things so that the educated elite
can take over
and so on. And you know, Nanas Ofori Atta was an active supporter of indirect rule with chiefs as core members of governance of the state.
So Nanas Ofori Atta was Ochehene.
Wonderful. So because of that, he also returned to the Gold Coast, and then as a teacher, he was also part. Then he has not become a lawyer then in 47. So he participated in the processes for the formation of the UGCC.
Wow.
And later he was also sent to the Legislative Council through, in those days you can vote for somebody from a traditional area, also entered there. Afterwards, he lost the 50, he was 51, he was also in the, he was the only member of the Bixers who won his seat in 51. By 52 elections, he lost 54 elections, he lost the seat.
Because the 51 election, CPP was against UGCC.
Yes, was against UGCC.
The only member of the Big Six who won from the UGCC was Ofori Atta.
He and Danquah, when I reached Danquah, the two of them were the only people who emerged from the UGCC.
So he was MP for, is it Chebi?
One of the south or central, I should have brought the map for you.
But definitely Eastern region.
The Eastern region there. And then he went into the Legislative Council. By 54 election, he lost the 54 elections, he lost it. And then 57 NLM, he joined the NLM and he lost again.
But he was there even up until, because I hear they were calling Pawili's name even in a 70-something election.
No, in 77 election, because he was well known back in the day. And he has then been one of the living survivors of this UGCC as well as the Bixers, who was in active politics. Adjei, after his prison experience, vowed never to be part of Gold Coast politics. So you could see that Adjei even survived, he was the last surviving member of the UGCC, but because he took low profile in politics, people did not hear. But William Ofori Atta was still actively involved in politics.
So in that election between the UNC and then the PFP, where we had the split between Pawili and what's his name? The
Victor Usu.
Victor Usu. This was in the 70s.
Yes, this was in the 79 election.
1979. So Pawili was still alive in 79.
Yes, so it was in 79 election when the division came about some people who have had clout in the busiest administration like Victor Usu and others, where Afrifa and Cold also think that it is their time. So they prop Pawili and Crow. And they also have some members of now, like Obediawa Samoa and Co, who were also then
the
from
National
now
Alliance of
Liberals, who have also joined them.
So Pawili was popular.
So Pawili was popular.
There was a song they used to sing about him. Convention clean, Pawili and so he was.
There was also a funny aspect that Osu Cemetery, Pawili and
wonderful. So I just want to say this to say that. So Pawili was active in politics even till the 70s.
And even when he lost the elections, Liman appointed him as the chairman of Council of State.
So he was highly respected.
Yes, well, highly respected.
So from 48 all the way to early 80s, Pawili was
still in there.
Wow.
That was his last
political position. So that's the son of Nanase Ofori Atta.
Yes, that's the son of Nanase Ofori Atta.
Who you are saying also happens to be an uncle to Nana Addo Danquah Akufo-Addo.
Yes, so his sister is Nana Addo's mother.
Is he related to the former finance minister?
They are all the same.
So the Ofori Atta is one family?
Yeah, it's one family.
Wow. So this is the third person when we come back, I want you to talk to me about two more people. Edward Akufo-Addo, the father of the Akufo-Addo, who also became head of state. And then, of course, the Dawn of Ghana politics or Gold Coast politics, JB Danquah. Then we'll come to Kwame Nkrumah. The point of view tonight, we want to answer the founder versus founders question. And we are being given a history lesson by Nkrumah. Who are the big six? We've been told who they were in terms of the names. We have dealt with Obetsebi-Lamptey, Adjei, and of course, Willie. When we come back, we'll do with the other three. All to answer a simple question. Was Ghana founded by one man or six people or many people? Stay with us. Welcome back. Point of view tonight is looking at the big question. Was Ghana founded by one man, six men, or many, many people? My guest we could have. So far, some names have come up that are interesting. So the big six were members of the UGCC Central Committee who happened to be at a meeting when the confusion of 48 happened. Other big names in that conversation, we have, of course, the R.S. Blay, who was a member of the Central Committee but was not in the meeting. James Christopherson was not in the meeting. Park Grant, who you can say was the financer of the UGCC, who Nkrumah wrote about as having given him money to take his first boat ride to Liverpool, where he went to study in the UK. He's almost like the biggest financer of Ghana politics. He wasn't arrested. Then there's also Joseph William de Graaf Johnson. Then there are two other names he mentions. Nkrumah, who led the riots.
Francis Awono Williams is not even there.
And then there's B.A. Tamaklo. And then Francis Awono Williams. Now, all these people are part of the story. But the big six happen to have been arrested, of which now we are told are the founders of Ghana. Let's deal with Edward Akufo-Addo.
Okay, so Edward Akufo-Addo, son of William Addo, who was a trader, also schooled in Presbyterian school all the way through Achimota School, had a scholarship to Middle Temple, where he studied, through Oxford, where he studied and earned his birth certificate, returned to the Gold Coast, did his pupillage in Ofori Chambers, and then he was a very smart guy. Even his enemies agreed that he's one of the brainiest legal practitioners Ghana has ever produced. This is from Geoffrey Bing, who had interactions with him. So Akufo-Addo also, at that time, interesting, Akufo-Addo was involved in formation of political party before 1947.
Wow.
He was with Kofi Edumwa Bosman, Niama Olenu, E.C. Quest, who is the first speaker, and several others, including the second speaker, Augustus Molade Akiumi, and co. When they founded Kuhe, the party is Kuhe in Ghana, it means new party. And that party was used to run in 1943 elections, but unfortunately, they lost the elections. So after the elections in 43, the party was repackaged, and it became National Democratic Party, NDP.
Hey.
Okay? And so this National Democratic Party contested the 51 election. By then, Akufo-Addo Christopherson had left the Kuhe and joined UGCC. Edumwa Bosman, Olenu still remained, and they ran the party and transmogrified it into National Democratic Party, the Domos, who were the centralist party. They don't belong to the ideology of the CPP nor the UP tradition.
So the Edumwa Bosman, who's a deputy chief of staff and Akufo-Addo now, his father or grandfather was one of these men
who founded
the Demos party.
Yes, he was from Gamambi party before he founded the Kuhe, then to the Domos.
Interesting. So this Akufo-Addo was brilliant.
Yes.
He was in politics before UGCC came.
Of course. So he was with the Kuhe, he was with the NDP, but when the idea of UGCC formation, his best friend is called Christopherson, that guy, Jimmy Christopherson. So he and Christopherson, they moved to the UGCC, became very influential members of the UGCC as the foundation members. And then he too, he never won any seat until 1950, when the member representing the Eastern Province, Ohineba Sechijan, died. When he died, he inherited the seat and then entered the Legislative Assembly in 51. In 1954, when the next election came, he lost it. He lost the election. He stood on the seat of the UGCC in the 51 elections. In 1954, he joined the Buzia's Ghana Congress Party. And around that time, he stood as independent. And then he lost. And then in 56 election too, he lost the election. So that was the last time he was in politics until the coup in 1966. Because afterwards, despite losing all these positions, he was appointed a Chief Justice later in the 60s to become, he was appointed to the Supreme Court. So he became one of the justices of the Supreme Court until the aftermath of the Kulungugu bombing trial, which saw the exoneration of the three people, that is Adjei, Adamafiu, and Kofi Krab. As a result of that incident, the president, in anger, sacked the Chief Justice. Van Leer resigned, and later Aresble, who has also been appointed into the Supreme Court with Akufo-Addo, was also sacked. So when he was sacked, it was...
So Aresble and Akufo-Addo, who were members of the Big Six, who were from the UGCC, were also Supreme Court judges.
Yes, Nkrumah appointed them
as Supreme Court judges.
Into Supreme Court judges because of their intellectual, legal capabilities.
So they sacked Van Leer as...
Van Leer was not sacked. He decided to resign on his own volition. It was the Chief Justice Akufo-Addo who was sacked. Van Leer resigned on his own volition.
Akufo-Addo was sacked by Nkrumah.
Yes. So later, then Akufo-Addo was sacked.
Interesting.
So when he was sacked, he went back to his practice until 66 coup, when the coup makers brought him, the National Liberation Council coup makers brought him and appointed him a Chief Justice. Okay, so he was in that capacity.
Of course, I think he became the head of state.
Yes, so he was in that capacity until 69 elections. Buzia won because we were practicing the Westminster system. So the leader of government business, the original ruler, when you use Westminster system, is the Prime Minister. So he became a sort of ceremonial head as a ceremonial president in 1969 to 1972.
So he's been in politics before 47. He became Chief Justice twice, and then he became head of state. So
he was not Chief Justice twice. He was just a Supreme Court
judge, sorry, under Nkrumah, and then Chief Justice under the NL.
Under the military regime.
NLC.
From
and then he became the head of state under Buzia. But this was ceremonial.
Yes.
Did he do anything after Buzia?
Yeah, so after that, it's no winning because after the overthrow by the champions regime, National National Redemption Council, he was not until he died in that time. So
you can say he also was active. I'm looking at the length of time. Obetsebi-Lamptey's politics after 54, we didn't hear much. Adjei left politics after his
fallout. Because Obetsebi-Lamptey died in the PDA detention.
Yes, and of course, Adjei, you said after the detention and all those things, he left politics. Yeah. Then you've told us that the third person in this group, he continued politics all the way, that's Pawili, till the 70s. Yes. Akufo-Addo also became head of state. So way into the late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. Let's deal with JB Danquah. Who is JB Danquah?
JB Danquah is an extraordinary man. Very brilliant, very selfless, hardcore nationalist of the time before Nkrumah will come into the political sphere. So Danquah, having been educated in the Eastern region all the way, also passed his first. His idea for law was worked by Vidal Bakau, where he went to have clerk work with Vidal Bakau, one of the famous Sierra Leonean lawyers on the Gold Coast. So he worked there, and later on, when he passed his exams, he moved all the way to University of London, where he studied philosophy, and later also went into the Inner Temple, and then passed his bar exams, and then later also returned to the Gold Coast. So he was a brilliant man. He won award for philosophy, John Mills Award for philosophy. So this is an astute intellectual. When he returned to the Gold Coast, he joined Aborigines Right Protection Society in the 1920s. While he was in, he and J.W. de Graaf Johnson, who had mooted the idea of Gold Coast Youth Movement around that time, founded with Ateku Braketu and some few others, Bosman, and co, they formed what is called Gold Coast Youth Conferences. And the Gold Coast Youth Conferences bring an array of the young intellectuals, professionals, all together and discuss alternative policies to the colonial policies that have been rolled out.
Okay.
So they had series of conferences from 1930s all the way onto the formation of the UGCC. So that was what Danquah, and he was also a critic, massive critic. He writes under so many pseudonyms, attacking the colonial policies. In fact, in 1932, 37, 38, he wrote an article damning the colonial estate in a satire form. And as a result, he was arrested and sent to magistrate court at Cape Coast under Magistrate Irwin, of which the second Chief Justice, Julius Akufo-Addo, was his lawyer, who defended him, and he was made to pay £20 for writing contrary to the criminal code of the time, which says that he has written what is called offensive writing against the colonial state. So it shows you the caliber of the man. From his youthful stage, he was really a radical sort of young nationalist around that time. And he did active work until 47. He sat down and realized that there was no cohesion in the way parties were organizing. So he decided to go and look for people who are ready. That this time, most of the political parties are Accra-based. Some are Cape Coast-based. That is not the way we can go. There need to be a unification. So all the people in the Gold Coast around that time, minus Transwater Togoland, minus the Northern Territories, should come together and then found a political party, because then Ashanti has joined the Gold Coast legislatively in 1946. And as a result, it gives him the opportunity to clamor for this unity. And so he did so. In fact, he contributed towards the formation of certain constitutions and the idea that Ashanti should be added into the Gold Coast. Danquah contributed to the discussions that went on. So he was better placed, just like Graf Johnson, who was also included in that, just like A.W. Kojo Thompson, just like say Akukosa, all those young people who contributed towards that document, which say Alan Barnes took and then added Ashanti into it for that legislative union to okay. So he decided to move to Sekendi because you need a financier. He went through Sekendi, through R.S. Blay. They went to see Park Grant, and the idea for the formation of the UGCC was crystallized. And then on 4th August 1947, they met at Kenyan Lodge, Albionmen's Kenyan Lodge in Sopon, and then they founded the UGCC.
So is it why he's called the doyen of Gold Coast politics? So
he became a doyen of politics, a description that was given to him in the Watson Commission report when they were describing him because of his activity. So
it was his ideas that brought the UGCC together.
Of course, no one can deny the epochal role of Dr. J.B. Danquah.
He was senior to the other 5, right?
Yes. But I think Graf Johnson was older than him. Francis Awuno Williams within the CPP.
Of course.
Yes, but with the Big Six, he's the oldest.
So they would have deferred to him on many issues. But it turns out they are all lawyers except Nkrumah.
Yes, Nkrumah himself also attempted law, and before he was coming down. Wow. So all of them had some elements of, because at that time law was the cocaine of the time. So when you do it, then you see the prestige, either law or medicine. So those who went to do journalism, like who decided to leave the Lincoln seat and do, when he came, his father, who was the first president of Gold Coast Bar Association, Peter Uno-Rena, he decided that my boy has gone wayward. So you see that sort of thing. But because at that time they put more prestige, as we have stated, on law and then medicine.
Wow. So J.B. Danquah was obviously the doyen of Gold Coast politics.
Yes.
All right.
And so his politics didn't end there after the formation. Yeah. So when they wanted to bring Nkrumah in, because the Graf Johnson, after working for just party was founded in August. By September, the Graf Johnson says it's affecting his business as a lawyer. And he needed to also write a lot of things because that guy was a great intellectual philosopher. So he decided that, okay, I don't want to do it again, find somebody. That was when Adjei made his suggestion. And then Park Grant wrote the first letter to Nkrumah. And then Nkrumah ignored it. Then Danquah also wrote. First one, Nkrumah ignored it. And then the second letter that Danquah wrote, he showed it to George Padmore. And the Padmore said, but what they are asking you to do is in tandem with the idea of independence. So why don't you go home? And so he returned. That is why when you look at the cablegram, the money that was given by Park Grant and Kofi Benchi Enchel was sent to Nkrumah via Danquah, JB Danquah.
Wow. So they convinced him to then come and be part and then became the general secretary of the UGCC. And of course, in 3 years, he had falling out with them.
Very good. And then he continued to go to the Legislative Council through the Achime Buakwa chiefs during the Legislative Council. In 51, as I said, General Assembly, when the Legislative Assembly came into motion, and then we ran the election in 51, he was the second member of the UGCC who won his seat in the Buakwa. And then Buakwa was in Central East, and then he won the seat, okay? When he won the seat in 51 all the way to 54 elections, he stood on the ticket of Buzia's Ghana Congress Party. And he lost the seat to Ofori Atta, his own, I would say, is it his nephew? It will be his nephew, okay? He lost the seat to him in that elections at the Buakwa Central. So in 1956, when NLM was founded, he joined NLM and decided this time fled from Buakwa Central and left the seat to Kofi Dia Sechi. And then he moved to Begro constituency, and he stood there and he lost the election. That seat will later become, Achike Sreford will later move from Kumasi North and come to Begro and win the seat again.
Wow.
So Danquah lost the 56th seat, and that was his last movement in
politics.
In politics. From there on, he became an agitator. Because
he was an opponent to Nkrumah in a way.
Yes, because he had the intellectual capability, the experience to write. I mean, he was the kind of person people respected, even the colonial authorities. So his views were heard. In fact, despite, you see, the politics of the time was complicated. They were pulling him down sort of thing, because everybody, if your party wins, you become, how do you call it, the president. So around that time, there were instances sometimes we don't want this guy to win. So you've seen that there's a letter, one of his personal letters has surfaced where he wrote to one Mr. Obdam, and they say he didn't like.
He said Nkrumah is up to his tricks.
That one is a personal thing. This, if you read the committee, workers committee report of the UGCC, the description given to Nkrumah by Awono Rena and the Gav Johnson, what Danquah wrote is part of.
It's not even that serious.
Inner political.
All right. Well, when we come back, I want us to talk.
I'm arriving at something. So even after that particular letter, people are using to detract JB Danquah. He proceeded in 1954 to move a motion of destiny that we should get independence around that time. Private member motion. He was doing it, but unfortunately, he didn't have the political clout to do so because there was a prime minister who was supposed to do that.
Okay.
Perhaps he wanted to push Nkrumah's hand to bring some sort of activize the movement towards independence. But people should not reduce Danquah into that letter, because his political capabilities even transcend that in 54.
I wanted to take a breather and come back and then look at, so in getting our independence and the question of whether Nkrumah should be the founder or whether the Big Six should be the founders or whether it should be the larger group including Christensen, Park Grant, and all these people. I would like you to answer that question. Yeah. Point of view is still trying to understand this question of who founded Ghana. Stay with us. Welcome back. So in a way, the topic for the show is twofold. Who is the founder of Ghana? You can also say, who are the Big Six? We've been walked through Obetsebi-Lamptey, Adjei, we know Edward Akufo-Addo, Pa Willie, JB Danquah. Now we are talking about Nkrumah. a lot of people know a lot about Nkrumah, all right? And we don't have time to discuss all of Nkrumah. But just, do you understand it when in 2012, the NDC government, September, declared September 21 as Founders Day, as the founder of Ghana? Did you understand them at the time?
Yeah, because the idea of founders is not a new thing. Since independence, it has been held in Nkrumah to be a founder until the overthrow in 1966, when the NLC government sponsored an article in the Daily Graphic, writing. So you see that in that article, there is no byline, except that from a correspondent. It was a carefully choreographed article trying to question, is Nkrumah really a founder? That was the article. Is Nkrumah the founder of Gold Coast? And he went on to talk about extrajudicial activities and all the wrong things you can imagine under Nkrumah's era, and then went back to talk about the fact that some people started the nationalism activities before Nkrumah came in. I understood that argument because the contestation is this. Countries and the way they get their independence originate from the way they were incorporated as a colony. So if you look at the United States and the way they were colonized by the British, because they went there, take over and so on, the people who wanted the independence had to go to war. So we have the United States War of Independence, 1777. Prior to that, when they were going to stay, in 1776, they had the Virginia Convention, where Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Paul Revere, the army commander, as well as George Washington and co. They all met under John Adams' care. And when the convention occurred, they decided that this is the United States Constitution we want to use when the independence comes. We are going to use to run the country. First Amendment, Second Amendment, and so on. They crafted it. And all the members at the Virginia Convention append their signatures, that being self-evident, the undersigned members are the founders of the United States of America. So there is a document. So we can say that it was an event that culminated in the foundation of the United States. So you can talk about founders. Ours was not an event. Ours and our incorporation was through treaties. So the independence struggle was the act of unmaking series of treaties in the form of fighting against obnoxious measures that the British were rolling out. So you see that right from Fanti Confederation, they started something. All the way to Fanti Amembufeku in 1888, they did something. All the way to 1897, the most epochal of the Gold Coast history, which even UGCC cannot compare itself to. 1897, fighting against the land law, which was the most important. Where the British took land of East Africa, they have to go through Mau Mau War, Uganda, Namibia, Swapo, they have to go to war. Zimbabwe, we all know they have to go to war. South Africa, the same thing. Aborigines Right Protection Society was able to go to the House of Lords in England and won the case and stop the British from alienation of colonial land, which saved the West African coast. It's epochal. That is one. Then you have the Forest Land Bill, which they were also able to defeat in 1910. That was the success of the ARPS. Have we heard of their names? John Mensah Saba, Kesri Hayford, Jacob Wilson-Say, J.D. Abraham, Joseph William de Graaf Johnson. All those big shots, Peter Awana Renner, okay, Adjei Buckner, all these intellectuals, Akukosa and co. What should they even say? These were the first people who laid the foundation that these people, you cannot joke with them. With that regard, afterwards, in Accra, we have the Gamambi Party that was founded to contest the elections. We have Asre Kowulu Party, which was also founded by Kote Papafio to contest the elections. We have the Ratepayers Association, Frederick Nanka Bruce. You have Akila Pasoya. You have very many women, Yisi Quest and Co. in the Ratepayers Association. They performed their role, they run elections all through that period. Then you have the 1943, as I stated, Kuhe, and then the NDP.
So UGCC,
when that's why the president is totally wrong when he says that in the 4th August. You state 4th August, it means you are truncating the work others have done. If Kwame Nkrumah came to meet people, you the big sis too, it is not that you came out of vacuum.
So if a president says Nkrumah is not the founder, August 4th cannot be the founder.
No, of course, August 4th, the significance of August 4th is the formation of UGC. It's a political party.
So that cannot be.
Never. Why can you use political party's foundation as the foundation of the Gold Coast?
So was it easy?
Then we should go back to the date of about 8 March in 1897 as the formation of the Gold Coast, because that is when ARPS was founded to
the Aborigines Rights Protection Society.
To save the lands of this country.
So for you, that's quite even more epochal.
No, for me, I don't even understand the 4th August, because look, if you want to unify a country, irrespective of unifying the country is very important. It's not about personal interest as a people belonging to Danquah tradition or anybody. No, it is about unifying the country. So therefore, the date itself must be able to unify the people. So if you use the date that your party or the grandparent of your party to start as a celebration day, others from other political parties will have cause to blame with you. And when they also get the political power, they will try to. In any case, we are talking about Ghana, not Gold Coast. So you see from the discussion, I'm answering your question about founder or no founder.
Yes.
You realize that the Gold Coast was all the way up to 56. That Gold Coast in 51 elections was the first time the Northern Territories became part of our legislative council system. Even in that election, they were not to come into the elections on a political party. So in 51 elections, neither UGCC nor CPP were allowed to campaign in the Northern Territories. It was in the 54, that was when they opened the door for everybody to go in there and campaign. You see? So all the way to 56, you have Gold Coast proper, Ashanti Territory, and the Northern Territories. When all these elections have been run and we are going to independence, there's one question. What do we do with Transvolta, Togoland? And then Nkrumah called on the UN for the plebiscite, which was conducted. And the people voted overwhelmingly, despite the massive opposition from the lower belt, that they don't want to join the reform. And for the purposes of some people who make certain statements, the Transvolta Togoland we are talking about does not include our area all the way through the Tong areas. So from Aflao all the way through Abozome, all the way to Sogakope, Fume areas, they were all part of Gold Coast.
Already part of Gold Coast.
Since 18, they were in Gold Coast before Ashanti became part of Gold Coast. They were in Gold Coast before Northern Territories became part of Gold Coast. The Transvolta Togoland started from Ho Enclave, all the way through Buem, Raura, all the way to Ketakrachi, through Bupe, Yendi, all the way to Boku. Those parts were not part. So many people think that Transvolta Togoland is just that small Ewa corridor. That is why their overwhelming vote could subsume that of the people in the North Ewe areas. Wonderful. Who voted mostly.
So coming to
so the 56 election was conducted. So the 1957 Ghana that was birthed is different from the Gold Coast. That is significant.
If Ghana was founded, it was 56, 57, and it was Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, that is why
Kwame Nkrumah is the founder of Ghana.
That is why your independence constitution, people should go and look at it. That we will become independence in 6th March 1956. The constitution was drawn between the opposition, the CPP, and the UK government. That constitution of 57 for independence, it was drafted in London. And in there, I'm surprised I didn't bring a copy. It was stated that on 6th March, we will become independent as a new country with a new name, Ghana. So it is not your Gold Coast, which does not include Transvolta Togoland.
So the founder of Ghana is Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes, because for the Togoland one that started, there was no Danquah in it, there was no Akufo-Addo in it. In fact, most of them, their political career had ended only to be resuscitated by 1966 coup. Without 1966 coup, most of them would have ended after 51 elections.
That's a very hot place, but I think we should end here for now. Thank you. Wow, we could Akwankra. So the question has been answered. The Big Six has been unveiled, and Ghana has been born, and Kwame Nkrumah is the founder, according to our historian, Kwame Akwankra. We'll see you next time. There's a lot to chew on. Have a good night.